now that we've opened the door and we have a super short session, I think, the book is really slim, but it's not size zero in wisdom. Okay, so it's incredible because it's really packed with facts. And what we're going to do is, I know it's not like a rapid fire round, but I'm going to ask him 5 things that you guys possibly didn't know about the flag. 4 names in one place. And he's going to not give one-word answers, but sort of give you a glimpse of what you can read in the book, right? So, what does Parsi Bagan have to do with the flag?
Thank you, Mandira, and thanks to William that he ran across, which is always tiring, to do this for me. Thanks. And yes, this book is as if it is on weight loss drugs, but
on Ozempic.
Yes, it's on Ozempic. It's sort of, but it packs some crucial information. It actually brings together everything that we can about the national flag in a few pages. You asked about Parsi Bagan.
Yeah.
Parsi Bagan was a kind of bagh or a public square of Parsi Bagan Lane in central Calcutta. And that garden or bagh now has a different name, I think Sadhna Udayan or something like that. And this was where, in 1906, a national flag, not exactly this flag, but a national flag representing resistance to colonialism, was first presented and hoisted in 1906. You will recall that 1905 was the partition of Bengal by Lord Curzon, and that became a kind of cause célèbre for bringing together a nationalist resistance over the issue of partition of Bengal. And they designed a flag and presented it to Surendranath Banerjee, who was one of the early nationalists. It was presented, incidentally, by Bhupendranath, who was Swami Vivekananda's brother, younger brother. And he was also the editor of the journal Yugantar. So it was presented to Surendranath Banerjee and it was hoisted. It became known as either the Calcutta flag or the Vande Mataram flag, because it had Vande Mataram written on it. And it sort of stayed in play for about 5 or 6 years, until eventually the partition of Bengal itself was reversed. And then, of course, the flag lost its colors, so to speak. So that is Parsi Bagan. And Parsi Bagan Lane, I researched, I haven't been on it, but evidently it still exists. And it has some old colonial structures in crumbling condition, but still very much there.
Okay. Now, Pingali Venkayya.
Pingali Venkayya is a very interesting character in the history of the flag and much neglected by Indian historians. Frankly, before I started reading for this book, I didn't ever hear of him. Now, he was a man of many parts. He was born in 1878 or so in Andhra Pradesh and went away and stayed in Machilipatnam. As a young boy, went to school and acquired very many different skills. He actually grew up and went and fought in the Boer War in South Africa. And he met Mahatma Gandhi in South Africa. And Venkayya then came back to India and he acquired many skills. He was a very restless mind. So he learned Sanskrit, he learned Urdu, he learned Japanese.
He learned Japanese, yes.
So he became known as Japani Venkayya.
And Diamond Venkayya also.
And then he developed a hybrid variety of cotton, of Cambodian cotton, and became known as Patti Venkayya. Patti, I believe in Telugu, is cotton.
Okay.
And then he went and worked in diamond mines, and then towards the end of his life was known as Diamond Venkaiah.
Yeah.
Later on, and I'll come back to Venkaiah's contribution, but he actually died in penury. He was neglected by independent India, as has happened in more than one case, unfortunately. And it was much later, in 2009 and 2022, that 2 postage stamps have been issued with Pengali Venkaiah as the maker, one of the early makers of the national flag. So when he came back from the Boer War, he was obsessed with this idea that I must make a flag for India. And he actually produced a booklet with 24 designs. 24 designs using ancient Indian motifs, different colors for different communities. You know, that was the way the thought process worked at that time. And he kept chasing Mahatma Gandhi. Because he knew Mahatma Gandhi. So he'd turn up at all the Congress sessions, etc., and chase him that take a flag. And Gandhi was not impressed. In Gandhi's own words, he said, I have not been enthused by Mr. Venkaiah until something particular happened. And a certain gentleman,
Yes. Who is
a man called Lala Hansraj of Punjab, of Jalandhar. So you know there's Hansraj College in Delhi. So Lala Hansraj of Jalandhar, who was a sort of acolyte of Gandhi, and he suggested to him that, you know, this spinning wheel, the charkha, is a very important symbol. Now it was the day of symbols. Gandhi cap had come into circulation. Khadi was beginning. And then when Lala Hansraj said charkha, spinning wheel, something clicked in Gandhi's mind. And this was at the All India Congress Committee session and the CW session, which was being held in Bezvada or Vijayawada in, I think, April 1921. When Gandhi called Venkaiah, come here, you're always chasing me with these designs, so why don't you in the next 1 hour give me a design with a spinning wheel in it? So Venkaiah went back to the drawing board, and lo and behold, he produced a design.
Before ChatGPT.
Before ChatGPT. And he actually produced a charkha, and it was red and green, only 2 stripes. Red for the Hindus, green for the Muslims. Don't ask me what happened to the others, but I can tell you. But that was the two stripes and a spinning wheel across. Now, he produced it, but it was too late for presenting it to the Congress. So then Gandhi kept it for the next opportunity. And during that opportunity, or the time that it was fortuitous, the delay, because Gandhi began to think more about it. And then he had presumed that the other communities don't matter because they are not in conflict. So it's the Hindus and Muslims who are in conflict, so I've represented them both. On deeper reflection, he realized he needed one more color for all the other communities. So he put white. So that's how the Gandhi flag, which never was adopted by the Congress in that form, but it just developed circulation as the Swaraj flag. And it was red, green, and white. Sorry, it was the other way around. It was the white on top, the green and the red. And his logic was that the weakest have to be protected by the strongest and then the strongest. So the majority was actually at the bottom. And they were supposed to protect all the others. So this flag actually continued for the next 10 years till 1931. So in this process, Venkaiah's contribution was huge.
He was the man who wanted the...
And Lala Hansraj, I've already told you.
We've done 3, Now, there is N.S. Hardikar.
Now, you see, when the flag came into being as the Swaraj flag in 1921, the flag began to be used in all kinds of protest marches, resistance, satyagrahas. And then people, the imperial forces or the colonial forces began to sort of say, you can't march with this flag. So then a satyagraha took place in Jabalpur and Nagpur in 1923, essentially for the right to walk with the flag. And this was particularly the Nagpur Satyagraha was a long one. I think it was about 6 weeks long. And first the Congress didn't come into it, and then slowly the local Congress backed it, and then finally the Central Committee of the Congress said, no, we need to back it. Sardar Patel was made in charge of that protest, and there were people like Rajendra Prasad, etc., and all the major figures, including Jawaharlal Nehru and Sarojini Naidu, everybody went there to support the flag. Now, after the flag became prominent, after the Nagpur Satyagraha, it was felt that you needed a certain protocol of how to deal with the flag. So N.S. Hardikar was a medical student who had done his medical studies in America. And came back sort of imbued with this idea of national struggle and so on. And he was the first man who developed this whole ceremony around the flag. You know, how big the flag must be, what length the pole must be. And they developed, during the Nagpur Satyagraha, the idea of Flag Day. The first Flag Day was 1923, 18 July. Later on, it was announced that the last Sunday of every month will be celebrated as Flag Day. And in the morning, there would be a flag ceremony, you know, in various organizations and all. And the flag ceremony was designed by N.S. Hardikar. He, you know, that the people will stand in with hands folded in a horseshoe formation. There will be the flag, and there would be the singing of Vande Mataram, and there would be the singing of a song which was designed. It was the song called Dhwaj Vandana. Dhwaj Geet. The entire ceremony was called Dhwaj Vandana. The song was called Dhwaj Geet. It was written by a man called Shamlal Gupta from UP. And it contained that line which has now come into common usage, Jhanda Uncha Rahe Hamara. So that line was first mentioned in that flag. Now we use it, you know, from winning cricket to doing anything. So so he developed this entire ceremony. He later published it as a booklet in the early 30s. And he also founded a society called the Hindustan Seva Dal, which had then, became responsible for all the material aspects of the flag. You know, a flag had to be flown, so to make sure that enough paper flags were available, enough cloth flags were available, and all the production processes. So that was the contribution of Dr. N.S. Hardikar.
And, you know, I think you also say in the book that during, on some days, people were allowed to hold the flag, right? And then it sort of comes into, you know, in Republic Day and this,
Yes, no, what happened was that was after independence. See, before independence, flag was everywhere. And then people were flying the flag, people were carrying the flag, you know, flag was being used in every possible... Once it became, after independence and the meetings of the Constituent Assembly and the adoption of the Tiranga as a national symbol, it became a different flag, not just in form. I mean, the color changed, the charkha changed to the chakra. The communal community or communal interpretation of the colors was denied. So all that came in. But what was more important was that it changed from being a flag of protest to a national symbol. So that national symbol had to have a different protocol. So in 1950 was promulgated the first Flag Code India. Now that Flag Code India was a very strict flag code. That only designated authorities could fly the flag. You know, if you are a district magistrate, or if you're an ambassador, or if you're a chief minister, etc., or you are given you have that authority to fly the flag. Other people could fly the flag only on certain days.
Yeah.
One was Republic Day, one was Independence Day, one was October 2, which was Mahatma Gandhi Jayanti, and there was an entire week which we don't know about, and that was called the Martyrs' Week, 6th of April to 13th April, to commemorate Jallianwala Bagh.
Yeah.
In that week, anybody and everybody could fly that flag.
That's really interesting, right?
And this was codified.
Yeah.
Now, we don't remember that week anymore.
Yeah.
I don't know where in the pathways of history it sort of fell on the side and was not considered important enough. But all this changed with the new flag code of 2002.
Yeah.
After the, the political changes in India, the technological changes, everybody was putting flag on their cheeks in cricket matches. So, it certainly became a bit odd that you can't fly the flag. So technology changed, television changed a lot of things, political parties changed, and then Naveen Jindal also fought the Supreme Court, a case which went right up to the Supreme Court in the 90s, and it was decided that everybody can fly the flag any day, but, and this is most important, we ignore the rest of it, but it is always subject to various conditions, particularly 2 acts of the Parliament, which is Prevention of Insults, and another one which denies you to use the flag for commercial purposes. Except for those conditions, you can fly the flag. So you can't fly the flag if it's in a torn condition or if it's faded. You can't fly it upside down. You can't let it dip on the ground. You can't fly it below any other flag. So there are various restrictions. But yes, that's how the whole progress happened.
Okay, so I'm going to throw it open, but the last is Eddie's, the
Eddie's Tailors and Drapers. Yes, Eddie's Tailors and Drapers was a shop in Connaught Place, New Delhi. And when, on 18th of July, 1947, the Constituent Assembly approved the design of the national flag, which essentially meant the size, which is 3:2, the color saffron, white and dark green, and the Ashok Chakra with the spokes instead of the chakra. This was approved by the Constituent Ad Hoc Committee of this Constituent Assembly, which met under the chairmanship of Dr. Rajendra Prasad. They held 2 detailed meetings, and they approved that flag on 18th of July, 1947. And then the secretary, and this I have on the authority only of a letter written by the daughter of the secretary to the Constituent Assembly was, or not a letter, an article, was Badruddin Tayyabji. And his wife, Suraya Tayyabji, went to Eddie Tailors and got the flag stitched in that formation and that proportion. And Pandit Nehru then, on the 22nd of July, 1947, presented the flag to the full Constituent Assembly, and it was approved. One was in khadi and one was in silk. And he presented those 2 flags, and so that is Eddie Tailors and Drapers. It does not exist anymore.
Okay. Now, we have precisely 3 minutes. Any questions? Right there. And I want to also announce that Ambassador Sarna is going to sign the book. Please, young child. Very appropriate.
Thank you, thank you. I want to ask that, is the tricolor truly unifying and a stable symbol, or its meaning is continuously re-represented in a different form across time and across the different people and the different religions and all?
Very, very good question. It's a very, very good question. I must tell you that when Mahatma Gandhi first chose those 3 colors, he had communities in mind. He said, this is for all the communities, the white, the minor communities, so to speak, or minority communities. The green is for the Muslims, which was the 2nd largest community, and the red, not saffron, The red is for the Hindus. And he said, I am putting these not to cause divisions, but to show that all the communities are united in one symbol. So his idea was to represent communities, but not to divide them, right? But in the 10 years that followed, there was a lot of conflict. And people were not sure if they had been given proper place in that community. For instance, the Sikhs had asked for a color of their own because they realized, where are we? We want, and there are two different versions. One is that they asked for yellow, one is that they asked for black. So all this debate happened. Hindu-Muslim relations also became very antipathic during the 20s. The cooperation of the Khilafat and the Congress had fallen apart. And then when the Congress adopted it in 1930, at the Lahore session, they said no color means any community. It does not signify any community. So they were given meanings like the white is for purity, the green is for prosperity, the red, which became saffron, is for sacrifice and renunciation. And this was the meanings which were then stated in the Constituent Assembly of Free India in 1947. And this is the meaning that sticks to today. So if anybody gives you different meanings, please tell them to go and read the debates of the Constituent Assembly, and all the framers of our Indian Constitution did not want any community meaning attached to any color.
Or read the book.
Or read the book.
And certainly buy the book. Okay. Thank you. I think that's...
There's one more?
One more. Okay. The gentleman here?
No, I think that's it.
Okay. Okay. So thank you so much.
Thank you.